Amen. What you say of me, I believe. That is a decision that we have to make. We have to make the decision to believe that who he says we are is who we are. I hope you guys are ready for tonight. I want you to know I don't typically play the keyboard, and if you could see my hands while I was playing, they were shaking like this. And I was very nervous. My mom is here, but she's been ill this week. We didn't post it on Facebook because we actually weren't sure what was going on. But she was in the hospital in St. Pete on Tuesday night after getting home from her trip with lots of different things going on, and more later once we see how things are going to go and turn out. But she has insisted on playing a song here in just a few minutes with a trio that's going to sing. But so I pitched hit, and let me just tell you, I struck out, is what I'm saying, okay? But my hands were shaking because I just want to sing. I just want to worship, right? And I'm back there trying to play the piano. I thought my mom seeing my hand was just shaking. She taught me a few things as a little girl, and obviously I didn't learn enough. But during COVID shutdown, one of the things that we were hearing to keep your brain strong and move forward was to learn something new. Learn a new language. Learn to play a new instrument. And so I picked up some of those old chords and the piano, and I learned them again. And what do you know? Like, God has used it a few times. And so tonight was one of those times, and I'm thankful to stand in for you, Mom, anytime. But if you could hurry up and get better, that would be really great. And I will nurse you back to health myself so that you can take back the keyboard. But I am just so emotional tonight. I am on the verge of tears all day and all night, and I know that this message is important, but I just want you guys to know how thankful I am to be with you, to serve you, to call you our church family and our friends. It's a real honor. It's a privilege. And it's been an exhausting week, and there's nowhere else I'd rather be than with you. And I want you to hear that with all of our hearts, that this is an honor and a privilege to serve with you and to serve you. And I really pray that you'll receive this message tonight, and that you'll know that I speak from the bottom of my heart of how much we are loved by a God who is unchanging, who is eternal, and has loved us all along. And that's not always how we're set up to believe, but that's the truth. And I really pray that you'll hear that tonight, and that you'll receive that truth tonight if you never have. But we introduced last week that we would be doing this book together as a church, and you don't need the book necessarily, because we're going to kind of break down the chapters one by one together on Saturday nights, and then we're going to expound on it, if you will. But if you would like to purchase a copy, there are a few left for $2 out in the foyer. You're also welcome to order one through us. We'll get it to you next Saturday. You will not have missed a bunch. If you go ahead and order it this week and get it next week, you'll still have time to catch up. These chapters are so easy to read, and it's just really good information. And if you read it this week, you saw that it's just really great information. Understanding one another, understanding how to love one another, too. And that's kind of where we're going tonight. But at first, the introduction is so good. Who has read the introduction? Raise your hand if you've read the introduction. Yeah, did you read the elephant story? Did you guys read that part? I'm going to read it for you. So the elephant story. It's actually kind of like the very first page of the book. So if you missed that, I suggest you go back and read it. Or if you get a book tonight, go back and read it. Or you can Google the elephant story and you'll see it again. You can read it, or you can read again what I'm telling you here tonight. It was 7 o'clock one Friday night. I was sound asleep when the phone rang. On the other end was my friend Dwayne Peterson, founder of the Hollywood Free Paper. How would you like to go to Tucson tomorrow? Tucson, I groaned. What in the world would we do in Tucson? My friend Bobby Yerkes has a circus playing in Tucson tomorrow, and I would like to just go down, get away, clear the cobwebs, and work the circus with him. We'll move some props, have a good time, and be back by 10 o'clock tomorrow night. Now, there probably isn't a boy alive who hasn't dreamed about running away with the circus as a child, so it didn't take me long to agree to go. The next morning at 7 o'clock, our jet lifted off the runway at Los Angeles International Airport, headed for Tucson. When we got there, it was a hot, dusty, windy day at the fairgrounds where the circus was playing. We moved props from one of the 3 rings to the next, helped in any way we could, and generally got dusty, dirty, tired, and hungry. During one of the breaks, I started chatting with the man who trains the animals for Hollywood movies. How is that you can stake down a 10-ton elephant with the same size stake that you use for this little fellow? So he has come across this 10-ton elephant that is staked down and tied to this tiny little stake, same size as a small elephant. The little fellow weighed about 300 pounds. Imagine the difference. It's easy when you know two things. Elephants really do have great memories, but they really aren't very smart. When they are babies, we stake them down, then try to tug away from the stake maybe 10,000 times before they realize that they can't get away. At that point, their elephant memory takes over, and they remember for the rest of their lives that they can't get away from the stake. Isn't that interesting? I'm going to keep the book close because I'm going to read out of it again in a second. The memory of the elephant, the baby elephant at 300 pounds, stuck. And as the elephant grew, it didn't know that it could do anything different at 2 tons as it did at 300 pounds. We can be like that sometimes, can't we? Well, this first chapter that we're jumping into tonight, is about children under the age of 10. And I said this last week. If we're going to be a church of generations, it's going to be really important that we understand each other. And when I'm talking about the things that we learned about children under the age of 10, you might wonder, what does this have to do with me? Well, guess what? You are living out the things that were instilled in you when you were a child under 10. It has everything to do with you. And so we're going to go there. We're going to talk about that. And so this first chapter is titled Security. And the question is, am I loved and am I safe? This is the question that children under 10 want to know. And what happens is that children want so badly to be loved well. And here are some of the ways that a child may or may not experience love in the home, especially under the age of 10, under the authority of adults. Truly loved, without conditions. That's what it means to be truly loved. You are loved without conditions, also known as unconditional love. Inconsistently loved. You may have read that, and I kind of made a mark on the side, and it says, I am loved based on how you're doing. So if the parent is doing well, if the parent is sober, if the parent is happy, sometimes parents may take out their feelings on their children. And so inconsistently loved child is a child that is being loved based on not unconditional love, but how the parent is doing. It gives an example. Loving when sober and cruel when under the influence. Conditionally loved. I wrote it this way. I am loved based on how I am doing. And consistently loved based on how you're doing. Conditionally loved based on how I'm doing. I do something well, you love me. I don't experience love. And then unloved, I am simply not loved at all. This all creates predictability. So basically what happens, I'm going to save my spot here, I don't want to lose my spot. What happens is when we are conditionally loved, when, let's say, I'm doing well in my grades, then I am more loved than when I'm not. Or if I'm good at a sport, then you cheer for me no matter how good someone else is. I want to know that you think I'm good, whether I'm the best kid on the team or not, but it's only when I hit a home run do I get the cheers and the applause. Or the inconsistent love, you'll find that a child acts out the predictability like this. A parent who has an addiction, but feeds that addiction when they go out with their friends. And the child will be at home recognizing this pattern in their parent. And you'll see the child start to say, Daddy, Mommy, why don't you stay home tonight? Because they know that when Daddy or Mommy go out, when they come home, they're different. And so these love if you will, these love experiences instead of life experiences, these love experiences, if you will, create predictability in the child. So the child begins to predict what's going to happen based on how the parent looks or is acting or is choosing. And so they create these life experiences and these love experiences based on these predictabilities. So this love experience creates predictability. If I see that my mom has that look on her face, not that my mom does, but a mom has a look on her face, and I know what that means, it means she's going to be really angry or she's going to be really anxious, I would tend to be like, hi mom, how you doing? Keeping it happy, keeping it light, keeping it good, everything's good. And children take on a responsibility to keep it okay because they know what's going to happen if. And then if there's just no love at all, children tend to just hide. And so the predictability that is set in motion with us becomes this kind of life filter that we use, even long after we're 10. And so we sometimes become cynical because we are often living out the predictabilities of our childhood rather than the possibilities of our present. And so as children, we learn that when this happens, then this happens. And so we start perceiving something in the middle of the road because of what happened as a child. And so we perceive there's something in the middle of the road, whether there is or not, and we begin to swerve so that we miss it because we predict how it's going to go. Are you with me, church? What does this have to do with me? I'm not under 10. No, right, you're the one swerving now at 20 and 30 and 50 and 60 because of what happened when you were 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. And it's perception often that will cause us to swerve the most, avoiding the potential predictable. You hear the word? Potential. And so we live out these predictabilities of our childhood rather than the possibilities of the present. We're told in Hebrews 10:23 to hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, because he who promised is faithful. So even in our faith walk, we will perceive a situation in ahead on the road, whether it is there or not, we will perceive it and we will swerve and we will start to become cynical and not even believe that there's a God who parted the seas. I don't want to swerve, you see, because I don't want my children to. And I know that when I swerve, I'm creating predictabilities right now in their life. Don't swerve. Hold steady. Your children, your grandchildren, they will too. Maybe it's not your child or your grandchild. Maybe it's a neighbor. Or maybe it's a children in a class that you serve here. Don't swerve. Hold steady. They will too. We tend to swerve based on the predictables of our childhood rather than holding steady because of the possibilities of the present. We won't even talk about the future, just simply the present. Hold on to God now. And they might just hold on to God later. What does this chapter 10 and another have to do with me? I want to learn from this. I don't want to swerve. I happen to be raised up in a really great, loving home, so some of this is psychology for me, and I'm understanding, but much of it matches some of the work that we've done in youth ministry and adult ministry all throughout our lives. When we encounter people that were not loved well, it makes an impact on their mind, and it changes how they live and whether or not they hold steady. And so these love experiences birth predictabilities, and our predictabilities birth levels of confidence. And the book takes us through a few levels of confidence, and I'll just read those right now. Life confidence. If you received unconditional love as a child, you're flexible, comfortable in almost any situation, and have life confidence. Now, so what does that mean if you didn't? If I received love well, unconditional love, I'm flexible and comfortable in almost any situation and have have life confidence, if you are not loved well, and you're sitting there going, why am I so insecure all the time? You might not have been loved well. Somewhere. We won't blame your parents. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was a coach. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe it was a sibling. But somewhere along the way, you probably weren't loved well. And that insecurity that is digging deep into your spirit and you can't seem to shake it is coming from a love experience. Maybe a spouse. Maybe someone you lost. And it's affecting your life confidence. God confidence, which I like to call, and the ladies know what I call it. I call it Godfidence. You can share that with me. That's a good word, right? Godfidence. The God confidence. Everything, even if everything falls apart, even if your life confidence can be shaken, even if your securities can be shaken, this is when you rely on your Godfidence. We decide that no matter what life brings our way, that my life experience will not determine my Godfidence. Now, what is your Godfidence based on? Not who you are, who He is. Amen. Your Godfidence is based on who He is. I heard someone say, His resume. Not the resume of how steady you've been with God, but the resume of how steady God has been for you. If we had a list of His experience, maybe we would see that He's parted seas and shut the mouths of lions. Quiet, church. If we had a resume, we might see that some of His experiences, He separated day from night. Yes. And He created beasts in the field, and man and woman, and everything that we need to live. Oh, the very air we breathe, that's His too. You see, my confidence is not in what I can do and what I can create and who I am or what He can do or what He can create or who He is, but based on who He is and what He has done and what He can do right now. That's right. Do you have God's resume on tap? Because His experience is vast. Oh yeah, and one time He gave up Himself for you. He gave His only Son to die so that you might choose to live. Oh, my confidence is based in that power. Amen. My confidence is in knowing who He is and what He can do and who He has become in my life and what He wants to do through my life. My confidence is in Him, not in me. That would be situational. We're not there yet. And so let's go back to those predictabilities we talked about. Predictabilities. You see, in life confidence, we kind of gain security based on our life experience. But Godfidence, what happens here is that we gain confidence in Him based on what He's done, just like life confidence. What has He done? We heard the song at the beginning. I see the evidence of your goodness all over my life, all over my life. I sat with a girl in a Starbucks one time. She was a teenager, lost as the day is long. Laura brought her to church after there was a suicide in their school. And she came to church looking for some comfort, some answers. So I invited her to coffee. And so we met at Starbucks a couple days later, and she said, what has God done for me? I'm so glad you asked. I happen to know a few things. And we sat, and I told her about a God who said, let there be day, and let there be night, and sent His Son. I started at the beginning, and we worked all the way through. Who provided manna for heaven, exactly what they needed when they needed it, in the exact amount they needed. And when they tried to hoard, it spoiled, because He said, no, you got to trust me. Have you had everything you needed when you needed? Maybe not a little surplus, but you've had what you needed when you needed it, have you? Yes. That's evidence of God. And as we talked and I showed her about Jesus and how God sent His Son to be with us. And to be with us and to show us that his love is available, his grace is available, his mercy is here, his faithfulness is here. It's not separated up in heaven, locked away, stored away somewhere that we have to know the code for. It is available to us. Jesus was all of that incarnate on earth. And when he sent Jesus, he made all of that available to us. And now all we have to do is choose it. What has God done for you? Oh, I can tell you more. And we talked, and she sat there and she cried and she said, I choose it. I want to choose it. And she accepted Jesus in her heart right there. And she walked in not knowing, not having confidence. She came from a home that was wrecked with drugs and abuse and all kinds of stuff. A life of, I can't even tell you. And that day she understood what it meant to have your confidence, not in your experience of life and the people in your life, but your confidence in the one who said, let there be day, and there is. And we take it for granted. We just get up and it's daytime. We go to bed and it's nighttime. He did that! He did that! Don't miss it! He did that! Those stars in the sky that you gaze at, he did that. That sunset you can't stop taking pictures of, trust me, it's on my phone too. He did that. That ocean so vast that you just want to get in it every time you go near it. You just put your toes in it and it's too cold and you step back out, but you'll stare at it all day long. He did that too. Those cornfields that you drove through and loved in Indiana this week, Josh and Cindy, he did that. That air you're breathing right now, he did that. Amen. And so after she accepted Jesus in her heart, they were passing out cake that they were selling and coffee samples. And I said, have you ever heard of communion? And I got 3, one for me, one for Laura, and one for her. And I said, now we get to thank him for all that he's done. And when you leave here, life experience will still be hard. People still won't always love well. You see, you're a part of a world that's inconsistent and conditional. Amen. But your confidence is in him, the one who never changes, who has loved you all along. There's a passage in Jeremiah 31:3 that says this. Well, what's happening here is that God is talking to the Israelites, and he's basically saying, I promise to restore you. I love this. And he spoke these words. I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. You see, sometimes our life experience as a child doesn't look like that, doesn't feel like that. But God says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. I have drawn you with unfailing kindness. He has done the same for you that he has done for the Israelites. When your confidence lacks, turn towards God and experience a Godfidence that will dig roots in you deep, that bear fruit forever. And guess what? To your children, and their children, and their children. What is your confidence in today? Is it in someone else? How they've lived? How they might live? Are you constantly swerving based on what you perceive could be because of what has been? Or are you holding steady based on the possibility and the promises of God and who he is? And then it talks about situational confidence. You may be very confident only in your ability in one specific area, such as playing golf. When doing anything else, you feel very insecure. This will create an identity crisis. That you are your sport. And you call your sport whatever. It can be piano playing, it can be writing. All of a sudden, we feel like we are the value of our output. I want to remind you, the God who said, let there be day and night, basically, let there be light, before you were even formed, he was doing all of this for you. If your worth is in your output, then he didn't do all that for you. But he did it before you took your first breath. He made men in his own image. And he gave man and woman. He gave them each other. And he gave them the gift of life together. And he sent his son. And his son died before you were even thought of. You are not the measure of your output. You are measured by his love. And I just want to remind you, it's everlasting. It's eternal. And as far as you can see from the east to the west, it's beyond that. Don't live according to situational confidence. That puts the worth in what you do rather than who he is. So many times we find our security in our performance. I was talking with a friend recently who was battling a lot of shame based on something that he thought might have happened 30, 40 years ago. And he's been trying since then to make sure, or at least sometimes to make sure that that didn't happen. And so living in such a way to make sure that what he's doing now is the truth. What he's doing now is the truth. What he's doing now is the truth. And it just dawned on me. Friend, your security is not in what you've done. Your security is in what he's done. Do you find all your worth in the things that you do and the things that you perform and the ways that you live? There might be some shame put on you if that's happening. I want to take that shame off right now and tell you that before you took a breath, he adored you. Before you had a name on earth, Jesus died for you. Your security is in the one who has been, who was, and will be. Yes, we're called to live out our faith, right? Yes, we're called to work out our faith in fear and trembling, and that comes with some choices, some intentional choices. And as we spend time together discipling one another, we might call you to that. But I saw a podcast video, whatever it was recently, a video clip that this man says, the day the thief died next to Jesus on the cross, he went to heaven after he recognized this was Christ. This is the Christ. I believe in you. I see you. I believe in you. And when he died, he went to heaven with Jesus. He didn't have a second of time to work out his faith with fear and trembling. And this is what was said. This is funny, but it's good. When he got to heaven, someone met him at the pearly gates and looking at the Lamb's Book of Life and looking at him and saying, on what account are you here? And they knew that he was a thief and a filthy-mouthed man and he was all these things, you know. And he was like, well, you know, and trying to explain it. And then they were like, looking at his life and looking at his whole living and all of his choices and all of that. And he's like, let me go talk to my manager for a second, right? So the archangel goes and gets God or whatever, or the angel, and comes and they're asking this thief, on what account are you here? And finally, the thief says, the man on the middle cross said I could come. And the thief entered heaven. Now, while you're on earth, let's walk and journey together and learn how to live out this faith together. But let me tell you something. Your security is in the man on the middle cross who has invited you to join him in heaven. And so this situational confidence reeks of performance. And then we find ourselves insecure. Now, I may have found myself insecure at the keyboard earlier. And I'm going to keep working on that. But honestly, I know the one I praise. I know the one that gave me the know-how to do that tonight. And I know the one who gets the glory.
Amen.
Situational confidence is all about me. But the man on the middle cross is where my security lies. Remember, the title of this chapter is security. Are we teaching our children that when they do it right, they're loved? I want to teach them that even if they get it wrong, they're deeply loved. Now, nobody knows how to fold a fitted sheet. And it's going to be okay. And you're still loved. Actually, my mom knows how to fold a fitted sheet. I gotta be honest. It's a square, and I don't know how. But here's the deal. Not everybody's getting it right. We're getting it wrong somewhere. And I still want to be loved. So do our children. Don't measure their love by their performance. And so, I left my notes a long time ago. I have no idea what I'm going to say next, so thank you, Cindy, for following me. Security, confidence. Here's a good quote. You'll see it on page 26. If confidence is lacking in any area of your life, don't try to pump up your confidence. Simply restore predictability, and confidence will return. Simply restore predictability. Now this is good stuff. So if my life confidence feeds my God confidence and my situational confidence, and life gets tripped up, and my confidence is tripping up, and the way to do that is to restore predictability. But I can't go back to my childhood to restore predictability in life experience. What do I do now? Well, that's when we step into the confidence. That's when we again take out his resume and we say, I'm struggling in my confidence in this situation, or in my identity, or in my being. And God, I need to know that you are who you say you are, and that I am who you say I am. And if you were wondering who that is, I will tell you, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John are great books of the Bible to read all about that. But listen to me, when we need to restore predictability and we can't go back to childhood, we step into the one who has loved us with an everlasting love and ask him to remind me who he is. And remind me of what he's done. And remind me of what you can do again. Because see, I don't want to be swerving all the time based on the predictabilities of my childhood. I want to hold steady with God based on the possibilities of his promises. And what he can do right here, right now. And so when your confidence, when your security gets tripped up, turn back to the one who you know you can trust. Who has loved you all along. There's a quote in here that says that basically, if whatever you're doing right now, you probably learned and set a pattern in the 4th grade. But there's some sort of pattern that was instilled in you at 9 years old. And it actually says, if you have 9-year-olds, get them around children older than them so they can learn, children that you trust older than them so they can learn, and children younger than them so they can lead. Be careful to surround them with only 9-year-olds, because that is the year, that 4th grade year is the year that they can learn the most. Teachers are important. Coaches are important. Parents are important. Older friends and younger friends, it's all important because they're soaking up more that year than any other year. And I started thinking about my 4th grade year when I read that part in this chapter. And I remembered that I learned what scuba meant in the 4th grade. Self-contained, underwater breathing apparatus. I lived in South Carolina. I wasn't going to go scuba diving, but I have never forgotten scuba. I don't use that in a sentence. Ever. But when I get a chance, I do. I will never shorten it. I will always say self-contained underwater breathing apparatus because I know that, because I learned it in the 4th grade. And I probably didn't use it again until I was moved here in Sarasota and going into high school. And I've never forgotten it. Also I haven't forgotten. We had a bulletin board in our church. And it had Sunday school class pictures. We'll say, some of you don't know what that means, life group pictures. So whoever's in your life group, you get a picture together. You're happy people. We put it on a bulletin board. And at this time it was a cork board with tacks. And you know what a tack is. Yes. And so tacks, certain generations, I just don't know. Do they know? I don't know. Tack it sticks things. So it's up on the bulletin board with a tack. Well, I remember walking by that bulletin board one Sunday morning, maybe Wednesday night, who knows, and my face had been scribbled out with a tack. And I didn't even know somebody hated me. I didn't know that. I didn't know people didn't like me. I didn't know. Learned that day, people don't like me. And I've never forgotten that. Someone does not like me, doesn't like my face. Never forgot that. I was baptized around that age, and I have holes in my eardrums. I've had holes in my eardrums since I was a little girl. They've never healed over completely because anytime I would go back underwater, they would burst, or if I got a cold or a sickness, they would burst. My cold would come through my ears, they didn't go through my sinuses. They went through my ears. And so my ears burst my entire childhood. I remember the pain. And at the age of maybe 9 or 10 or so, I don't know, they burst for the last time, and they thought about doing skin grafts, but I hadn't been sick since the last time they burst, so they decided not to, because I was well, with holes in my eardrums. I currently have holes in my eardrums. The ear doctors love me. I was baptized around this age. And I remember having to hold my ears when I was baptized. And when I came up out of the water, children were laughing. Some of my friends were laughing. I believed they were laughing because I had to hold my ears. I was insecure about not being able to go underwater for a very long time because of that. You know what else I remember? I remember that I felt like the prettiest girl in the world when my dad told me, "Look how beautiful you are." I also remember that I felt completely loved and completely safe in my home, and that my siblings and I laughed harder than anyone I've ever known. Still can. I also remember some of the Bible stories that they told me, and they told me with such belief in their hearts. And I watched them live out their faith that I believed them. I also remember every little song they taught me. I don't always get the words right, I don't always get the tunes right, but I remember some of those songs have come up in my life at pivotal moments. And if you've heard my testimony, you've probably heard this. But there was a season in my life where I was in a situation surrounded by some people that were very cruel to me. They were people that I thought would have accepted me and loved me for who I was and for how I was serving, and they weren't. They were gossips, and they were very cruel. I hadn't done anything to deserve that necessarily, but from time to time they would have something to say about what I wore, or who I talked to, or who I didn't talk to, and it was never positive, it was never good, it was always undermining, and it was consistent. I was uninvited to things like women's groups and Bible studies. And I was a believer, I was a pastor. And it hurt, and it was hard. And we were doing this one Bible study by Beth Moore called Breaking Free, I believe that's what it's called. And I was sitting at our bar table in our kitchen, and I was coming to this day, and I was low. And I wasn't sure why this was happening, because it was pretty intense. I've minimized it here for you. Pretty intense season. And I was doing this Bible study, and I come to this chapter, and Beth Moore asked us to sing a song. Sing a song of praise. Sing a song that's in your heart. Well, if you know anything about me, I always have a song. I wake up singing. I go to bed singing. I walk around singing. I always have a song. There's going to be music in my car. There's going to be music in my life. I already know the songs I want at my funeral. If I die young, I want these. If I die older, I want these. Music is part of my being. Always has been. And so as the author instructed us to sing a song, I had no song. And I didn't realize that this hard season, I was a believer, I was a pastor, but that this hard season, this crushing season, had stolen a song. And I just began to cry, and I just said, I don't have a song. And so I wanted to honor the author. And I believe that when people write things like that they're in the Spirit. And that when we come to that chapter on that day, in that moment, this is divine. And I wanted to honor that she was anointed to write it, and that I would be anointed in the moment to do it. And so I said, Lord, I don't have a song. So I'm just going to open my mouth, and you sing a song. And I sat there, and I went, I am a promise, I am a possibility, I am a promise, with a capital P. I am a great big bundle of potentiality, and I am learning to hear God's voice, and I am trying to make the right choices. I'm a promise to be anything God wants me to be. You see, I learned that song as a child. And I hadn't heard that song in a good 20 years. And on that day, in a dark time, when I didn't have a song, he reminded me of who I've been all along. And that season came to discourage me and wanted me to quit the ministry, wanted me to quit a lot of things, but I didn't, because I'm a promise to be anything God wants me to be. What are the truths deep down in your heart that you learned as a child? Maybe there aren't any. Maybe the only thing deep down in your heart from your childhood is predictable pain. Well, I want to tell you something. The Bible tells us to come to him with childlike faith. And what he wants to do is he wants to restore us and show us that he has loved us unconditionally all along. He wants to take that pain and turn it into promise. He wants to take those seasons and turn them for your good. Hurt people, you've heard it, but listen to me. Healed people, help people heal. He wants to meet you where you are. And you may find yourself in a cycle that is pain, poor choices, regret. Pain, poor choices, regret. Pain, poor choices, regret. And I want to encourage you with this. If you are finding yourself in that cycle, there's probably someone you need to forgive. It might be yourself. It might be a parent. It might be a former pastor. It might be a coach, a teacher, a sibling, a friend, a spouse. But it is time to set our hearts free. Replace the lies with the truth. Decide to live according to Godfidence and forgive. When we forgive, the past may be our reality, but it is no longer our focus. When we forgive, that may be our reality, but it is no longer our focus. That's important. When we forgive, it doesn't change that it happened. It just changed that it doesn't define me anymore. It doesn't have a hold on me anymore. It doesn't control me anymore. That this is not the reason why I do or don't do anymore. When we forgive, the past might be our reality, but it is no longer our focus. Yes, we remember things that happened, but don't let it paralyze you for the future. Don't repeat the generational context of the ones that have hurt you. Start today like the first generation of love givers. Today, you get to decide. Not my family. Not me. And if you find yourself in an older age and you have regrets, I want to say to you, it's not too late. It is not too late to turn your mind and hold steady towards the one who promises you. And have your confidence intact, and then go back to those people and ask them for forgiveness. It's not too late to ask for forgiveness for those you didn't love. And it's not too late to start over where you are. We have been loved with an everlasting love. The one who holds us in the palm of our hand is the reason that our confidence stands. For children under 10, and for those of you today, your security is in the one who has loved you all along and has held you in the palm of his hand every day of his created being and every day of yours. Do you understand that his love is unconditional? And for those of you that haven't had that kind of love, it's hard to wrap your mind around. But when we step into a confidence that we've been loved all along, and I don't have to constantly swerve to protect myself. And I don't have to predict that it's going to go left, or predict that it's going to go right, or the next shoe is going to fall, or that's going to happen. That I can hold steady with God, and I can build a new security, not based on my performance or based on someone else's choices, but based on the fact that I've been loved all along by a God who said, let there be day, and let there be night, and breathe life in us, and gave us His Son, just in case we choose Him. That we can hold steady in a God who shuts the mouths of lions, who heals the leper and opens the eyes of the blind, and receives the prodigal from the pig pits with wide open arms. We can hold unswervingly, no matter what our past looks like. Because the promise of the present is God is in control. And He has loved you all along. And His love will never end. There's a trio that's going to come forward. And as they come, you might remember last week I shared songs of the faith from different decades. And I told you about the song, Jesus Loves Me, This I Know, that it was written in the 1860s. And it was actually a poem first. And it was spoken over a child that was dying to bring comfort. And we've always sung it as a happy childhood song. It was written for comfort. And then I sang a few other songs from different decades. Well, I've asked them to sing a song tonight from another decade. May this generation bless you and teach us that we are loved and we can love too.
Loves me
The theme passage for this series in Psalms 145:4 says, "Generation after generation stands in awe of your work. Each one tells stories of your mighty acts." As the worship team comes forward, we're going to sing a song here to close out our service today. But generation after generation after generation stands in awe of your work. Whether tonight you have been encouraged to step deeper into love with a God who has loved you all along, and link into a confidence that no matter what has passed and no matter what comes, that I am who he says I am. Or whether you've been encouraged tonight to do the work of forgiveness. As we sing this song and you're encouraged to join along, please know that you can come to the steps here and kneel and do the work with God, who loves you so deeply and just wants to be with you and wants you to be his and wants you to be healed and wants you to be whole so that we can multiply children after generation after generation that will know him and love him and know who they are in him and have a confidence that doesn't swerve. Let's pray. God, we thank you so much that no matter where we look in your word, we see the story of your goodness and your love. And when we look back through our lives, yes, we can see the pain, and yes, we can see the hurts, and yes, we can see the inconsistencies in love and the conditions in love that we've had to venture through and work through. But God, if we will look even a little deeper, we will see the evidence of your goodness all over our lives. God, we thank you that before we even breathed our first breath, that you loved us enough to send your Son. God, we thank you that in your word it tells us that while we were still sinners, that Christ died for us. That what you did for us was not conditional on our performance, but simply because you wanted to make a way to be one with us, to give us something to hold steady to. And God, you have done that. God, I pray tonight that we would choose to refocus our hearts and our minds and our souls, to place our confidence in you, so that generation after generation that comes behind us will do the same. And God, we know that if there are some stumbling blocks in our past that we need to forgive, God, that we would do the work of forgiveness so that we can be set free to start a new generational context of loving God and loving others. God, we thank you for this book, and we thank you for these words, and we thank you more than anything for your everlasting love that restores us day by day, month by month, year by year. And when all else fails, Lord, help us to look up and remember the man on the middle cross. He gave it all. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. As we sing, stand with us if you would, and as we sing this